You need to move. Ma'am, that seat's reserved for Lord Harrington. The flight attendant's voice was clipped, her words sharp enough to slice through the hum of boarding chatter. Victoria Grant blinked once, slowly, as if giving Emma Stone a final chance to take it back. But the silence that followed was just as cutting. Before we dive into this story, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. And if you believe that truth, justice, and equity still matter in today's world, hit that subscribe button and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Now, let's get into it. Victoria Grant. 48 hours removed from a keynote address at the World Tech Equity Forum, stood at the front of the first-class cabin of Skylux Flight SL319, her travel tote tucked under one arm, her boarding pass in hand. She wore a dark navy blazer over a soft gray tee, tailored jeans, and low-heeled loafers. Nothing flashy, just power wrapped in restraint. Her seat, 2A, was already in view, waiting near the window, but her path had been cut off by Emma, the flight attendant who'd stepped in front of her like a security checkpoint, behind Victoria. The boarding line at Gate 62 pushed forward impatiently, the noise of wheelie bags and muffled voices blending with overhead announcements. "My name is Victoria Grant," she replied, calmly but firmly. "This is my assigned seat." She held up the boarding pass, the Skylux Platinum logo clearly visible. Emma glanced at it, lips pursed, then leaned to speak quietly into her earpiece, her tone urgent. "We've got a seating issue. Passenger refuses to move. Yes, 2A. Noah Carter, the lead flight attendant, appeared moments later, holding a printed passenger manifest in one hand and a tablet in the other. "Her payment didn't go through," he muttered to Emma, his voice low but not low enough. "She's not marked as confirmed. The system must have flagged it." Victoria's eyes narrowed. She had attempted check-in at 9:55 a.m., 5 minutes before the scheduled boarding, and the kiosk had briefly glitched when swiping her platinum card. But the receipt had printed. The gate agent had scanned it. She was on the plane. "Excuse me," she said, addressing both of them now. "There must be an error. I'm confirmed for seat 2A. You scanned it at the jetway." "Our system flagged it as unpaid," Emma replied briskly, not meeting her eyes. "We need to reassign this seat to an arriving guest." "Guest?" Victoria repeated. "You mean a customer?" "Lord Julian Harrington," Emma clarified, her voice dropping an octave, as if reverence alone justified the request. Victoria looked past them and saw a tall white man in a pale cashmere coat step into the first-class cabin, trailed by Lucas Bennett, CEO of Bennett AI. Lucas gave Victoria a quick once-over, then turned to Emma. "You can't expect him to take an aisle seat next to anyone. This was supposed to be arranged." Julian Harrington let out a sigh, the kind that's practiced over decades of getting his way. "This is a matter of social hierarchy," he announced, placing a leather satchel on the floor with entitlement soaked into the gesture. "Miss," Lucas added, turning to Victoria now, "perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. This flight is full, and someone in your position may find more comfort elsewhere." "Someone in my position?" Victoria echoed, her voice even, but a current of warning ran underneath. William Reed, a black entrepreneur seated in 2B, looked up from his phone, his eyebrows rising slightly. "She belongs exactly where she's standing," he said. Lucas ignored him. "The manifest says she's unconfirmed. Let's not complicate things." "I'll take economy if she refuses," Julian Harrington said dramatically, as if he were sacrificing himself for the good of humanity. Victoria didn't blink. "You'll take economy because this is my seat." She turned to Emma. "And I suggest you double-check your records before escalating a mistake." Emma looked flustered but held her ground. "You don't appear to meet our platinum dress standard." she said. Jeans are not typically worn by platinum members? Victoria cut in. Is that in your policy or just your prejudice? And then, for a single moment, her thoughts flicked backward to a scene she'd buried under layers of steel and success. She was 25, dressed in a pressed navy dress and carrying her first laptop bag, boarding her first international business flight. A white woman in a red scarf had stopped her at the door of the cabin, scanned her boarding pass, then smiled thinly. I think you've made a mistake. Sweetheart, business class is just up ahead. When Victoria showed the ticket again, the woman's smile vanished. This isn't typical, but fine. The sting of that moment hadn't faded. It had hardened into resolve. It was that memory that had pushed her to build Grant Vision Tech. That day, she stopped trying to be let in and started building what others could never close off. Julian Harrington smirked. These people always make everything about race. Julian Hayes, a journalist seated in 3A, slowly raised his phone and began recording. Let's see what the world thinks about who belongs where, he muttered. Emma's eyes snapped to him. No recording allowed during boarding. Julian kept the camera pointed. Then perhaps you shouldn't say things that can't be heard in daylight. Emma's voice rose slightly. Ma'am, I must insist you relocate. Victoria turned toward Riley Parker, her assistant, who stood quietly behind her. Riley, start recording. Audio only. We document every incident for our equity audit log. Riley tapped her phone without hesitation. Rolling. Noah tried to interject. Ms. Grant, it's a simple reassignment. No need to escalate. Oh, but I do, Victoria replied. Because this isn't about a seat. It's about the assumptions you made when I walked on board. This is not personal, Emma said. It's logistical. No, Victoria replied calmly. It's systemic. And unfortunately for you, I've spent the last decade dismantling systems like this one. Lucas took a step forward, folding his arms. So now you're threatening the crew? That's not going to look good. Ms. Grant? No threat, she said. Just accountability. William leaned closer and whispered to Victoria. You want me to say something? She nodded once. William stood. She's not wrong. This has happened to me. Last month. Same airline. Same excuses. Noah blinked. We're under pressure. It's a packed flight. Mistakes happen. Mistakes don't single out the same kinds of people every time. William replied. That's not pressure. That's bias. Emma stepped back, the tablet in her hand shaking slightly. I don't make the rules, she mumbled. But you enforce them, Victoria said. Selective enforcement is the heart of every prejudice. Julian Harrington rolled his eyes. Can we just have her moved? This is getting tedious. Victoria stepped forward, her voice sharp now. Lord Harrington, if you don't want to be in the presence of equity, I suggest you charter a private jet. This seat is taken. A murmur rippled through the cabin. Julian Hayes held up his phone. All captured. Emma's expression cracked just slightly. Are you really going to make this difficult? No, Victoria said. You already did, but I'll make it right. And with that, the temperature in the cabin shifted, not from air conditioning, but from the weight of realization. Every eye now turned toward Emma. Noah, Lucas, and Julian Harrington, Riley whispered. Want me to notify Elaine? Victoria shook her head. Not yet. Let them finish their performance. Then I'll show them who I am. Emma's voice sharpened, trying to sound calm but cracking at the edges. Ms. Grant, we've asked you politely. Lord Harrington has flown with us for years. He has diplomatic standing. This isn't personal. It's protocol. Victoria didn't flinch. What protocol demands that a paid confirmed seat be handed over to appease a man's ego? She asked, her voice steady, though her jaw clenched. You're making this difficult, Noah said as he stepped forward, holding the tablet again, sweat beading along his hairline. We've checked the manifest twice. Her seat shows as unconfirmed. Lucas Bennett crossed his arms beside them, letting out a breathless chuckle. Look, let's not turn this into a spectacle. Everyone here can see what's going on. First class has an image to uphold. And he gestured toward Victoria's jeans with a slight shrug. Some people just don't match the brand. Victoria's eyes darkened. You're not describing a brand. You're describing a barrier. Julian Harrington, now seated nearby, muttered under his breath. She's clinging to a seat like it's status. The flight crew stiffened as his words echoed too loudly to ignore. Emma looked around, conscious of the growing stares. I'm going to ask one more time. Please relocate. There are open seats in economy. Riley Parker, still recording from just behind Victoria, spoke clearly. This is being logged in full. Audio and timestamp confirmed. William Reed, seated next to the empty 2A, leaned forward. Why hasn't the manifest been checked again? Visibly. She has the boarding pass. I watched her scan it at the gate. She's not wrong. Julian Hayes, still filming quietly from across the aisle, panned toward Emma and Noah's faces, catching every twitch and whisper. Emma's voice rose as she turned to Noah. We can't delay boarding for this. Call security if she won't comply. Victoria tilted her head. You're going to call security on a confirmed passenger for refusing to surrender her seat to someone whose title flatters your prejudice? Emma blinked. For a moment, doubt crept into her expression. But then Noah leaned closer to her, whispered something, and she nodded. Final chance, Ms. Grant. Actually, Victoria replied. Final chance for you. Her voice was calm but laced with steel. Correct the manifest or prepare to answer to corporate. Lucas snorted. Oh, please. You're just another LinkedIn warrior who thinks success earns you immunity. This isn't about race. It's about class. And you're trying to buy one. At that, a silence fell across the front cabin. Even Emma's hands dropped to her sides. Victoria breathed in once and said slowly, I built my seat. I didn't buy it. And for a single breath. The memory returned. Age 27, fresh off a seed round that barely kept her startup afloat. Wearing a Navy pantsuit and boarding a transatlantic flight for her first tech conference in London, she had been excited, hopeful, until a flight attendant glanced at her boarding pass and asked her to wait. We've had a late upgrade request, the woman said, not even trying to sound apologetic. A long-time flyer, you'll be rebooked to premium economy. With extra legroom, no refund, no reason. Just replaced. Victoria had taken the downgrade that day without protest, but she never forgot it. That was the flight where she stopped asking for space and started building her own runway. She looked up now, back in the present, eyes locked with Lucas. You don't know what people have endured to sit here. Riley nodded, eyes not leaving her phone. Victoria Grant, founder and CEO of Grant Vision Tech, $7 billion in valuation. We're minutes from finalizing a $500 million deal with Bennett AI. Or, we were... Lucas's face blanched. He looked at Emma, then back at Victoria. That's not relevant here. You made it relevant, she said. By deciding who belongs and who doesn't? Julian Harrington folded his arms. You're not the first to play the martyr card. It's always the same with new money. I'm not playing, Victoria answered. I'm documenting, and so is everyone else. She gestured toward Julian Hayes, who lifted his phone slightly in confirmation. Emma glanced toward Julian Hayes nervously. Sir, please stop recording. He shook his head. Public interest, and I'm not interfering, just observing, like you asked us all to do. Right? William added. We're watching all right, and some of us have seen this script before. Victoria's expression softened again. She turned to Riley. Tell them. Riley's voice came through steady. Logged at 10:08 a.m. Confirmed. Noah shifted uncomfortably. Ms. Grant. I wasn't trained to handle this. Victoria turned toward him slowly. Then how were you trained? Noah hesitated. Then, in a voice that barely rose above a whisper, he said, We're told to prioritize passengers who fit a certain profile. Clean lines, quiet elegance, familiar names. I didn't make the system. Miss Grant, I just followed what I learned. The words hung in the air like thick fog. For a moment, no one moved. Then William stood. So casual bias is your training manual? That's what Skylux stands for? Emma tried to intercept. He didn't mean it that way. He meant every word. Victoria interrupted. And now we all heard it. Julian Hayes zoomed in on Noah's expression as guilt settled like dust in his features. His hands trembled slightly as he looked at the tablet. I should have confirmed your name manually, he muttered. The system, I just assumed. You assumed, Victoria echoed. And that's the difference between equity and exclusion. Between protocol and prejudice? Julian Harrington rolled his eyes. Are we going to take off or continue this civics lesson? Victoria turned to him slowly. You'll take off, but you won't take my seat or my dignity. Emma straightened up again. We're going to need to reassign you or delay departure. Then delay it, Victoria replied. Because what happens next is bigger than takeoff, Lucas hissed. You're tanking this flight over a seating chart? Victoria stared directly at him. I'm standing up for every deal, every flight, every boardroom where someone like me was told to yield. And for your information, Mr. Bennett, I am the deal, Riley quietly added. Audio recorded, footage synced. William, now standing near Emma, said, Passengers are witnesses now. That changes everything, Julian Hayes added. And public record. Emma's mouth opened, then closed. She looked back at Noah, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. Instead, he nodded slowly, defeated. We'll check the manifest again. Do that, Victoria replied. And this time, read what's actually printed. The entire cabin felt still, like air pressed in from every direction. A reckoning had begun, not loud, but absolute. And every breath now came with consequence. Emma's voice hardened as the tension in the first-class cabin thickened. Ms. Grant, she said sharply, we now need to verify your identity. Please hand me your ID and boarding pass. Victoria met her gaze without flinching, but the demand stung. You scanned my pass at the gate. You've seen the seat number. You know who I am. I need to verify it again, Emma repeated, already holding out her hand. Your boarding status is still unclear in our system, and we can't hold the flight any longer. You mean you won't? Victoria said quietly. There's a difference. Noah hovered just behind her, clutching his tablet like a shield. She's not on the manifest. Her name doesn't show under 2A. The seat's unassigned. Lucas leaned in, smirking. Then it's settled. Let's stop wasting time. Julian Harrington nodded, adjusting his cufflinks. Give the seat to someone who respects tradition. The cabin fell into an uneasy silence, broken only by the hum of air vents and the soft clicks of passengers texting or recording. Julian Hayes lifted his phone a little higher, framing Emma's outstretched hand and Victoria's refusal. Slowly. Victoria reached into her blazer, not with compliance, but with precision. She pulled out her ID and boarding pass and held them up. Look at them, she said. Then look at me. and say out loud that I don't belong here." Emma took the documents, glanced at them, and looked at Noah. "Still not matching," he said, frowning. "Something must have gone wrong during check-in." "A payment glitch occurred at 9:55, Victoria replied. "The kiosk rejected my platinum card due to a system freeze. The second swipe printed my receipt. Your gate agent scanned it. I was confirmed." "That's not what the system says," Noah muttered. "Because someone changed it," Riley called out from behind, still recording. "You're watching the error play out in real time?" Emma turned slightly, lowering her voice. "We can't resolve this here. The captain's waiting for clearance." Victoria didn't move. "Then let the captain wait." Lucas exhaled, annoyed. "You're making a scene over a clerical issue." "No," Victoria said. "You're making a statement by treating a black woman in a blazer and jeans like she's a threat to the decor." Julian Harrington laughed, short and dry. "This entire airline is falling apart. You can thank DEI initiatives for that." That's when the memory returned, vivid and unwelcome. She had been 30, seated in 1C on a connecting flight from Zurich to New York, just as the cabin door was closing. A white male passenger stepped aboard, red-faced and shouting, "She's in my seat!" he barked. "This is a mistake!" The crew didn't check boarding passes. They simply asked Victoria to stand, told her they'd sort it out after takeoff. They never did. She spent the flight in a jump seat near the galley, while he sipped champagne in silence. Afterward, when she asked for documentation of the error, they said there was no record. "You should have spoken up louder." That humiliation had hardened into something sharper, a kind of internal firewall that now flared in her chest as Emma held her ID with trembling fingers. "You've made this personal," Victoria said slowly. "Every decision, every word." Noah stepped forward. "Ms. Grant, I admit, there was a misassignment. I didn't double-check the manifest against your ID after the payment flag. I assumed the seat wasn't yours." "Why?" Victoria asked. Noah swallowed. "Because when the system glitches, we're told to assign open premium seats to high-profile travelers. Lord Harrington arrived last minute. I thought you were economy." Julian Hayes zoomed in on Noah's face. "So, what you're saying," Julian said, his voice low but cutting, "is that the glitch didn't misassign her? You did?" A ripple moved through the passengers nearby. William stood again. "He just admitted it. You misassigned her seat based on a glitch and an assumption." "And what assumption was that?" Victoria asked, her voice softer now, but heavier. "That I didn't belong up here?" "I didn't say that," Noah muttered. "But you didn't have to," she replied. Emma tried to pivot. "We'll find you a better seat. Perhaps 3A. It's still first class." "Not interested," Victoria said. "I don't want your correction. I want your accountability." Emma's frustration boiled over. "Why are you making this so difficult?" "Because I've been silent too many times," Victoria replied. "And every time I've yielded, it taught someone else that they were right to doubt me. Not today." Lucas folded his arms again. "So what now? You're going to sue the airline?" "No," Victoria said. "I'm going to dismantle this entire performance, one truth at a time." Riley tapped her phone. 10 minutes of audio logged, 4 distinct statements suggesting bias, video synced with time code. Emma looked like she wanted to vanish. "It wasn't meant like that," she said. "But you meant it," Victoria countered. "That's the point," Julian Harrington scoffed. "This entire exchange is exhausting. Then get off the flight." William shot back. "We're all tired of your voice." Julian's mouth dropped, stunned by the directness. Victoria turned slowly to Emma. "Let me make this clear. You've turned a seating error into a civil rights violation, and you're still pretending it's about logistics. Noah added. She was flagged because of the glitch. But we never verified. We just moved on. That's on us. No, it's on all of you, Victoria said, pointing to each of them. For seeing a black woman in jeans and deciding she didn't belong, Lucas muttered under his breath. This is absurd. Julian Hayes turned his camera to him. Care to repeat that for the recording? Lucas looked away. Emma's voice dropped again. I did reassign her seat to economy. I didn't mean to. I just followed protocol. Which protocol? Victoria asked. The one that tells you to believe platinum means something only when it comes with pearls? Emma looked up. I'm sorry. Don't say it to me, Victoria said. Say it to every person who's been quietly moved, replaced, or erased. Say it loud enough for your employer to hear. Riley tapped the screen one last time. Manifest error. Reassignment confirmed. Audio locked. Emma's voice on record. Victoria looked over the cabin, where faces now watched not with curiosity, but with understanding, some nodding, others looking down, guilty. We're not done, she said. Not yet, but we're close. And with that, she stepped back into position beside her seat. 2A. Not as a favor, not as a compromise, but as a rightful place reclaimed, and the prelude to the reckoning about to unfold. Emma stepped back from Victoria's seat, shoulders tight, jaw set, eyes scanning the cabin like she was waiting for backup. Then, voice pitched high enough for all of first class to hear, she said sharply into her earpiece, "Requesting assistance. Passenger is non-compliant. I repeat, non-compliant." The word landed with a thud, like a false charge hung on a real name. A few rows back. A passenger glanced up from his newspaper. Another adjusted her phone to record. Lucas Bennett straightened his tie with smug confidence and turned to Julian Harrington. They'll handle it soon. Some people forget where they stand. Julian raised an eyebrow and offered a cruel smirk. Let's hope they move her before we take off. The air smells tense. William Reed stood up again, this time fully turning toward Emma. You're calling security? Over a seat that was hers in the first place? Emma didn't respond, but her eyes darted toward Noah, who looked down at the tablet in his hands as if hoping it would hide him. She's escalating, Julian Hayes whispered as he lifted his phone, capturing Emma's request and the tension it unleashed. And the camera's rolling. Victoria didn't move from her spot beside seat 2A, but she turned toward Riley. Is the call logged? Time stamped and backed up. Riley replied, I've got ambient cabin audio plus Noah's last statement. The murmur across the cabin had shifted now, from irritation to alignment. Whispers of support rose from a woman in 1F. A quiet, she's right, came from a man near the bulkhead. Emma turned quickly toward Julian Hayes. Stop filming. Not a chance, he said flatly. You've created a moment of public interest, and I don't delete injustice. Victoria looked across at Emma. You're building a case for your own downfall. Let it keep going, Emma snapped. You're out of control. No, Victoria said quietly. I've been too controlled for too long. Behind the curtain, a pair of uniformed security officers began moving down the jet bridge. Riley clocked it instantly. We've got movement. 2 coming aboard. Victoria didn't flinch. Let them come. I've got nothing to hide. Lucas smirked and muttered. You'll wish you had walked away. Those words pulled another memory to the surface. Age 28, seated at a high-end restaurant during a business dinner with a VC firm in Dallas. A host had walked to their table, leaned toward Victoria, and asked if she was with the catering staff. Assuming from her darker skin and navy blouse that she didn't belong. She had laughed then, trying to smooth the moment over, but when she excused herself later, she cried in the car. That night, she promised herself never again would she accommodate someone else's ignorance just to keep the room comfortable. She built Grant Vision with that fire in her chest, and now, standing before this cabin, she was done shrinking herself to make others feel tall. The security officers entered the aircraft and were immediately intercepted. By William. "Before you do anything," he said, holding out a hand, "you need to verify who the seat actually belongs to." One of the officers blinked. "We received a non-compliance call." "You received a biased call," William corrected. "Look at her boarding pass. Listen to the recordings. Ask for the manifest check that hasn't happened." Julian Hayes held up his phone. "It's all here. Video, audio, and crew statements." Emma's voice trembled. "She refused to move. From a seat that was hers," Victoria added. "Your system glitched. You reassigned it. You then insisted I leave it for a man with a title. That's not a flight error. That's a pattern." Noah finally looked up. "I made the mistake," he said, voice cracking. "I didn't double-check. I assumed based on the flag." "And why did you assume?" Victoria asked. "Answer carefully." Noah swallowed. "Because that's what we're briefed to do. We're told to avoid conflicts with priority passengers, frequent flyers, elites, people the company wants to impress. If there's a gray area, we're supposed to shift others. Quietly. It's not written down, but it's known." The cabin fell into stunned silence. Emma's face flushed. "Noah, I'm done covering it," he said. "This isn't the first time. And it always looks like this," Riley whispered. "That's it. We've got the twist." Julian Hayes spoke next. "Emma," he said carefully, "what's the phrase used in the morning crew huddles? You know, the line about which passengers to prioritize when boarding's tight?" Emma froze. I don't remember." William's voice was steady. "I do, because I overheard it at the gate. You said, 'Legacy first. Optics matter.'" A gasp rose from the front row. Emma shook her head. "That's not official policy." "But it was practiced," Victoria said. "Practiced until it became invisible. Until people like me became invisible." The security officers looked at each other. One stepped aside, raising his hand. "We're not intervening." Emma turned to them, stunned. "But, ma'am, we were called for non-compliance. What we see is a confirmed passenger defending herself against a protocol error." Julian Harrington rolled his eyes and muttered, "What a mess." "No," Victoria said. "What you see is a reckoning, and I'm not done yet." Riley stepped forward slightly. "Manifest corrected," she said. Eyes on her phone. "Gate team has confirmed 2A belongs to Victoria Grant, logged at 10:19. Emma took a step back, suddenly looking very small beneath the bright cabin lights. Julian Hayes zoomed in slowly as the hum of support thickened around them. One passenger whispered, "She's changing everything." Another, "She didn't even raise her voice." William looked at Emma. "You had a chance to do the right thing quietly. Now the whole world will watch you do it publicly." Victoria raised her chin. "This isn't just about me. This is about every person you made feel small to make someone else feel elite." Her voice lowered. "And now I'm here to make it right." Victoria stepped forward, calm but commanding. The cabin now hushed beneath the weight of what had just been exposed. Passengers leaned in, every eye fixed on her as if waiting for permission to exhale. "Let's stop pretending this is about a seat," she said, her voice even but laced with iron. "It's about who gets protected when bias shows up in a uniform. It's about what people like you," she looked directly at Lucas Bennett, "are willing to overlook when your comfort depends on someone else's silence." Lucas shifted, jaw tight. the smug confidence that had followed him aboard now cracking like porcelain under a slow flame. "Victoria," he began, hands raised in false diplomacy. "This is just a misunderstanding. Surely we can handle this professionally, offline." "Professionally?" she interrupted. "Like the time I asked your board to adopt DEI audits and you said, 'Our talent pipeline doesn't reflect those concerns'? Or how about your CTO refusing to publish pay equity metrics last quarter?" Her voice didn't rise, but its precision cut deep. Julian Harrington looked amused again, but that expression didn't last. "You've turned this whole cabin into a courtroom," he muttered. "A public spectacle." "No," Victoria replied. "You did, when you asked to displace someone not because of the manifest, but because of how I look. You called it pedigree. I call it rot." William stood beside her now, arms crossed. "And I call it a pattern," he said. "Because this has happened before. To me, to others. We're just finally recording it now." Riley stepped forward, her phone screen bright. 10 passengers confirmed they witnessed the reassignment. I've got statements, time-stamped footage, and voice logs, all saved, all backed up to our internal archive. Emma looked stunned, her voice reduced to a whisper. "It was never meant to go this far. That's what people say when they think consequences are optional." Victoria answered. Then she turned fully toward Lucas, her tone colder. "As of this moment, consider our pending deal canceled. $500 million of investment is walking off this aircraft." A few audible gasps rippled through the cabin. Lucas froze. "You can't be serious." "I am," she said. "Because this wasn't just about today. It's about everything your company failed to see leading up to it. You chose to build an AI platform that replicated the biases you refused to confront. You told me inclusion was secondary. Today, it became non-negotiable." Julian Harrington let out a sound, half scoff, half cough. "You're overreacting. No one with real wealth throws away a deal this big over a seating dispute." Victoria turned to him. "Steady. That's because no one with borrowed power understands the cost of dignity." Julian Hayes's camera panned slowly across the crew, capturing the stunned expressions of Emma, Noah, and Lucas. William's voice cut through again. "I've spent years being told to wait for progress, to be patient. This is overdue." Emma tried once more to salvage her ground. "I followed protocol." "Which one?" Victoria asked. "The one you couldn't name, or the one you helped create?" Emma opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Riley stepped beside her. "We submitted 2 formal complaints to Skylux HR 6 months ago regarding discriminatory practices on SL-226 and SL-904. Both were dismissed without follow-up. One of them was signed by a passenger who is now on this very flight." She gestured to seat 4A, where a woman lifted her hand quietly. "I'm Maya Patterson," the woman said. "Last November, I was asked to leave my seat in business class because a celebrity needed privacy. I emailed the airline. No one ever responded." Emma blinked rapidly. I don't know anything about that." "You don't have to," Victoria said, "because someone else hid it for you." She turned toward Noah. "Didn't they?" Noah looked down at the floor, then slowly back up, his face pale. "There were internal notes," he admitted. "Complaints that got filtered. We were told to redirect them unless they involved physical harm. Just flag the report, add a soft note, move on." "You buried them," Victoria said. "You helped a system survive by silencing those it harmed." Noah's voice broke slightly. "I thought I was helping the crew. I didn't want to rock the boat." "You let the boat sink," William said. "You just didn't hear the splash because you weren't in the water," Riley added. "I pulled one of those complaints from our archive last night. I didn't know I'd need it today, but it's there. Your name's on the log. Noah, you marked it. No escalation needed. Noah covered his mouth with one hand, eyes wide. I was just trying to keep things smooth. You kept them quiet, Victoria said. And that's not the same. Lucas stepped forward, desperation leaking through his voice. We can fix this. Victoria, let's talk. I'll issue a statement. I'll personally oversee crew training. You'll do nothing, she cut in. Skylux will do everything, because this isn't just a matter of PR. It's a matter of culture. And your culture is broken. Julian Hayes glanced at Riley. This footage changes everything. It already has, Riley whispered. Passengers who had been silent began nodding. A few clapped, soft, unsure, but real. Victoria looked over the cabin, then down at Emma. You chose the wrong seat to challenge, then at Lucas. And you chose the wrong legacy to ignore. She returned to her place beside 2A. Calm, unshaken. I won't let my equity fund your inequality. And with that, the $500 million storm settled into stillness, but the cabin had been transformed forever. Victoria stepped quietly into the narrow galley, away from the stares and tension of first class, and lifted her phone. The fluorescent lighting cast a soft reflection against the brushed steel of the coffee station as she took a steady breath. Elaine, she said, once her lawyer picked up. Terminate the Bennett AI investment. I want the language clean and absolute. No reconsideration clause. Elaine responded calmly on the other end, and Victoria ended the call without a pause. She stood there for another second, surrounded by the hum of idling engines and brewing coffee, letting the final weight of the decision settle, not out of hesitation, but out of clarity. When she returned to her seat, all eyes shifted to her. Riley leaned forward slightly. Was it done? Victoria nodded once. Effective immediately. A murmur passed through the passengers. From the galley curtain, a uniformed supervisor emerged. His name tag read, Marquez, Cabin Lead. His expression was stern but neutral. Ms. Grant, I've just finished reviewing the crew footage and 3 independent complaints from passengers. He said, Corporate HR has been notified. Flight attendant Emma Stone has been officially relieved of her duties. She will be removed upon arrival and placed under internal review pending termination. Emma spun to face him, stunned. You're firing me? Based on a few complaints and a video? That's outrageous. Marquez didn't waver. You violated company protocols, initiated an unnecessary security call, and enforced a reassignment based on non-verifiable logic. While actively escalating passenger distress, it is not just one incident. There is a pattern. Emma turned to Victoria, seething. You set this up. No. Victoria replied quietly. You did. I simply refused to stay quiet this time. Lucas tried again, more desperate now. We can't undo the damage if this goes public. Victoria looked at him for a long beat. It already is. Julian Hayes held up his phone without a word. Behind him. William crossed his arms and said, It's public because you made it personal. Emma stepped forward, her voice suddenly lower. There's something else you don't know. She glanced at Noah, who wouldn't meet her eyes. We were told to keep the logs clean. Any complaints flagged as bias or appearance-related. We were supposed to redirect them, reword them before they reached management. The cabin went still again. You altered the complaints? Riley asked. Emma nodded slowly, her voice strained. I didn't do it alone. We were told, unofficially, that optics mattered. A high incident rate among elite passengers. It was considered a brand risk. We filtered, reworded, buried a few. Noah's voice cracked as he added. We had a meeting about it. I didn't speak up. I knew it was wrong. But I told myself I was protecting my co-workers. Victoria stepped forward, her voice quiet but resolute. You weren't protecting anyone. You were protecting the illusion that this airline was fair, and in doing so, you harmed people who didn't have the title, the voice, or the money to fight back. Marquez took out a small notepad. We'll be opening a formal audit into every passenger complaint submitted through your team over the past 18 months. Ms. Grant, your recording and testimony will be included in the internal inquiry. Gladly, Victoria replied, because I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in repair. Emma looked toward the aisle, as if searching for an exit that no longer existed. They'll ruin me. Victoria didn't gloat. She simply said, no, you did that yourself. You just didn't think anyone would remember the names of the people you erased. Julian Harrington, arms still folded, finally spoke again. So this is what equity looks like? Everyone getting fired for making one mistake? Victoria turned slowly. This isn't one mistake. This is the moment where the mistakes stop being invisible. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded with the sound of a system finally cracking open. As the aircraft prepared for takeoff, the mood in the first-class cabin had shifted entirely. Emma sat in the rear jump seat, silent, eyes glassy, her career already unraveling in the silence between passengers. Noah remained slouched near the galley entrance, shame plastered across his face, while Lucas Bennett avoided all eye contact. Visibly shaken by the sudden collapse of a $500 million partnership, Victoria sat quietly in seat 2A now, not as a woman who had won, but as one who had restored something taken. Riley leaned toward her. Julian Hayes just sent the footage to Skylux's board. Their media rep already requested a copy. William looked on from 2B, voice low. This didn't just change a policy. You changed the air in this cabin. Victoria gave a small nod. Now it's time to change the sky itself. As the wheels lifted from the runway, Riley received a message and turned to her. You're going to want to hear this. She handed Victoria the phone. On the screen was a recorded voice message from a former Skylux crew member. Anonymous, but unmistakably weary. I was part of the morning briefings. I watched Emma lead them. Legacy first, image over escalation. That wasn't just a saying. It was standard. I followed it. I enforced it. I let good people get downgraded, removed, or ignored because I didn't want to lose my place. But what happened today? It needed to happen. Victoria stared at the message for a long moment. Then she closed her eyes, letting the confession wash over her like cold water. Cleansing. Chilling. True, Riley whispered. They're going to open a full historical review now. Every manifest, every complaint log, every reassignment for the past 5 years. Good, Victoria said. It's the only way forward. By the time the flight reached cruising altitude, Emma had been quietly escorted to the rear cabin. Lucas Bennett and Julian Harrington were informed via onboard communication that they were banned from all future Skylux flights, pending internal legal review, and Noah, pale and quiet, was told he would be suspended from flight operations until the investigation concluded. But the most lasting change wasn't found in those immediate consequences. It lived in what came next. Victoria reached for her iPad and opened a folder labeled Equity Ops. In it was a document she'd drafted months earlier but hadn't yet proposed, a blueprint for an airline-wide initiative to train flight staff in implicit bias recognition, dignity-based de-escalation, and equity-first customer service. She renamed the file right then, Sky Equity Protocol, within the hour. She sent it to Skylux's executive board, along with a note that read, "Consider this your second chance. The first one ended today, when the plane landed at Chicago O'Hare." She stepped off first, not as a passenger, but as the author of a new standard. The epilogue came not in headlines, but in what followed over the next 3 months. Skylux Airlines implemented the Sky Equity Protocol company-wide, Flight crews were retrained, complaint systems were overhauled, anonymous review panels were created, and for the first time in the airline's history, their annual equity report listed passenger treatment metrics as a top-tier accountability measure. Emma's name was never mentioned in public statements, but internally, her case became mandatory training material, titled not as punishment, but as prevention. Lucas's AI deal with another firm collapsed when the footage spread, revealing his indifference, and Julian Harrington quietly disappeared from the American investor circuit. But Victoria Grant? She rose even higher. When asked why she hadn't sued, she simply said, "I didn't want compensation. I wanted transformation." She spoke at the World Aviation Forum 2 months later, unveiling the Sky Equity Protocol in front of 400 executives from around the globe. "Dignity is not a luxury," she said. "It's the minimum altitude we should fly at." The audience stood, applauded, and many left asking how their own companies could follow her lead. Back home, in a quiet interview, Victoria reflected on that day aboard Flight SL-319. "I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make threats. I just stood my ground. And sometimes, that's all justice needs. A place to sit." So wherever you are, watching from Chicago, Ghana, or right here in the comments below, let this story remind you that equity doesn't shout, it endures. Share this story if it moved you, and never forget, the seat you're told you don't deserve might be the one you're here to protect.